How shall I stand before thee but in silence? I will keep silent before thee. Out of the silence, the presence and the power of God come, not out of reasoning, not out of much speaking, but out of the hush in which the soul consents and the mind lays down its arms. Be still and know that I am God. We will be still. We will know. We will not try to know. We will let the knowing reveal itself as presence. If God is omnipresent, where could danger find a home? If the one is everywhere, then tell me, friends, where is the corner kept for harm? In him we live and move and have our being. If that is true, and it is true, then all our alarms are echoes in an empty room. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. We are not here to argue that promise. We are here to dwell, even now, even in this breath, in that secret place within us, closer than breathing, nearer than hands and feet. Let us set the frame rightly from the first word. What is born of fear bears fear. What is conceived in anxiety begets its own kind. Protection that springs from dread multiplies dread. Not by might, not by ingenuity, not by the vigilance of frightened thought, but by my spirit, saith the Lord. Protection that arises as presence dissolves fear as dawn dissolves the trembling of the night. Perfect love casteth out fear. Not argument about love, not recital about love. Love realized, love felt, love as the very atmosphere of our being. Therefore, we do not begin by talking about God. We begin by opening the inner ear to God. Make your contact with the infinite invisible. Turn from the clamor of taking thought. Take no thought for your life, and rest the mind in a listening attitude. Not words now, but willingness. Not petition now, but availability. Listen for that which is too soft for the outer ear and yet unmistakable to the heart, the still small voice Elijah knew when the wind and the earthquake and the fire had passed. The kingdom of God is within you. It will not arrive with observation, but it will announce itself to the inner ear as peace. I have sat above a street that rattled with sirens and shouts, and in that upper room of silence watched fear melt without a word. I have seen a mother, hands trembling, close her eyes for a single minute and discover a presence that steadied them both. No technique, no argument, only the quiet acknowledgement God is here. So we begin not to contend, but to consent, not to persuade, but to perceive, not to secure ourselves by walls, but to be secured by the one presence. Keep this ear open now, listening, not for doctrine, but for God. Out of this hush, safety will not be made. It will be found, already given, already present, already God. Now let us look with quiet honesty at why the other way, the way of fear, never keeps its promises. We are living in a season of alarms upon alarms, the eyes glazed by a blue glow, the thumb in a click trance of threat, the nervous system trained to expect the next push alert of doom. It is fatigue of the soul, not because the world is more terrible than it has ever been, but because our attention has been discipled to danger. We call it vigilance, and we baptize it being informed, but it is only the mind on sentry, pacing the wall alone. And except the Lord keep the city, the watchman waketh, but in vain. This is not a rebuke. It is diagnosis. We are discovering why it has not worked. Fear prayer backfires because it takes thought. It is nothing more than the mind rehearsing its own prophecies, repeating them as if repetition could conjure safety. Which of you, by taking thought, can add 1 cubit unto his stature? Taking thought about danger is not protection, it is imprinting. Every time you voice the peril, turn it in your hand, analyze its angles, assign it a schedule. You are engraving it deeper upon the tablet of mind, and mind then presents you with more of what you have honored. Job spoke for us all. The thing which I greatly feared is come upon me. Not because fear creates reality, but because fear confers false status, a second power. And in that worship of shadow, the light seems dim, not by might, not by mental power, not by the stratagems of a tense imagination, but by my spirit, saith the Lord. You cannot harvest peace from seeds of panic. You cannot wring assurance out of an anxious jaw. You cannot get grace by the machinery of, if only I say it louder, longer, faster. Fear-based protections are towers of Babel, busy, loud, and collapsing by their own weight. Grace is given, unearned, unengineered, and only the heart stilled in God discovers it as already present. Talking about God will not save you from the fruits of fear. I have sat through sermons that catalog the dangers of the age with such vigor that the congregation left heavier than they came, clutching their pamphlets of peril. And after all of that talk, what? The same headlines, the same trembling. Why? Because presence was not contacted. We spoke of God as if God were an absent ally to be summoned by anxious speech, instead of the indwelling life to be realized in silence. Be careful for nothing, the apostle counseled. Be full of care for nothing, but in everything let prayer be communion, not performance. Let thanksgiving be atmosphere, not bargaining. I have watched dear ones bolt the doors, stack plans upon plans, sleep with their shoes on, and wake unrefreshed. And I have watched the same souls, for 1 minute, lay the mind down and whisper within, God is. In that minute, the climate of the house changed, not because an angel arrived from the outside, but because the idol of fear was unseated from the inside. Perfect love casteth out fear. Not the phrase, but the realized presence to which the phrase points. So let us be very clear. What is birthed in fear sustains fear. It bears its own kind. But what rises in grace dries the roots of fear. Therefore, cease measuring the winds. Cease arguing with appearances. Not to deny them, not to defy them, but to deny them authority. Turn, even now, from the rehearsals of dread to the interior altar where God is already God. When presence is realized, danger has no throne on which to sit, and the watchman rests, for the Lord keeps the city. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. I am the Lord, and there is none else. There is no God beside me. If that is truth, and it is not a doctrine but a fact of being, then tell me, where could a second power lodge? If the one is omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient, where would another authority stand to oppose it? In infinity there are no corners in which an adversary may crouch. In light there are no secret closets where darkness can store its furniture. God is light, and in him is no darkness at all. If darkness appears anywhere, it appears only as the absence of recognition of light. Turn on the light, and you do not fight shadows, you outshine them. One mind is the only mind. Let that sentence stand in the quiet till its weight is felt, not as an argument, but as awareness. One mind is the mind of you. The thoughts of God are the movements of your real consciousness, and everything that parades as a second mind, fear mind, mob mind, media mind is not a reality to battle, but a mist to see through. The light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. The darkness did not understand it. The darkness could not put it out. When you and I rest in the realization of one mind, we stop lending credentials to the counterfeit. And without our credentials, it cannot transact. This is the core revelation to which grace has been leading us. Refuse two-power living, not God and evil, not spirit and threat, not heaven and a little annex for hell, only God as reality. That is not theological stubbornness. It is spiritual sight. For years I tried to hold both God on Sunday and a weather report of fear on Monday, and the result was conflict multiplied. Then in a small apartment, with a window rattling and the headlines shouting, I put the problem down and whispered within, Father, thou art one. In that remembrance, the weather was what it was. The news was what it was, but its scepter snapped. The appearance did not vanish. The authority did. We do not deny appearances. We deny them authority. We do not shout at the waves. We discover the Christ sleeping in the boat and rest with him. Not to make the storm stop, but to reveal that within the I that I am, I live, yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. There is no second power to fear, no second mind to consent to, no second law to obey. If God be for us, who can be against us? One with God is a majority, and not because one has won an argument with error, but because in the one there is nothing left to oppose. Let this be our contrarian stance, but let it be gentle. We are not here to brand names on illusions, nor to wrestle phantoms. We are here to behold God as all, to keep our inner ear open until the felt assurance settled. I am that I am. Beside me there is none. And in that atmosphere, protection is not achieved. It is recognized as the climate of oneness, not by might, not by mental struggle, but by my spirit, saith the Lord. Now comes the holy pivot, from saying to sensing, from describing God to contacting God. You may hold the finest phrases in your mouth, one presence, one power, and still tremble until contact is made. God must be felt. God must be realized. God must become an experience. The kingdom of God is within you, said the Master. It is not a sentence for recitation. It is a direction to the inner sanctuary. Make your contact with the infinite invisible, not to accumulate words about God, but to let the presence announce itself where words fall away. How shall we do this? 2 or 3 minutes at a time, without petition, without project. Sit as you are, on a train, in a chair, at a desk, close the outer door of speech and open the inner ear. Whisper, if you must, as a threshold and not a plea. Father within, thou doest the works, and then be still. Not to get, not to change, not to move God, but to yield to the God already here. Keep this ear open, not the one that catches traffic and talk, but that other ear just beyond the physical ear, the listening place, inside the listening. You are not looking for sentences. You are not hunting for signs. You are consenting to be found by the still small voice that does not argue and does not prove, yet carries its own self-evidence. Thoughts will parade. Let them pass as clouds. Sensations will flicker. Do not examine them. Even holy ideas will knock. Thank them and let them go. Return to the bare, quiet availability. Here I am, Father. Thou doest the works. Breathe as you breathe, and do not manage even that. What arrives is not a thought, but a climate, not a conclusion, but a quiet. My peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth, give I unto you. You will know you have touched the hem, not because fireworks went off, not because you solved a riddle, but because a weightless weight settles assurance without evidence, warmth without temperature, a hush that gathers the edges of your mind into one. The peace of God which passeth understanding keeps the heart and mind, and in that keeping there is safety. Understand this clearly. Safety stabilizes not by more and better thinking about God, but by brief and faithful returnings to God as felt presence. Not theory, but touch. Not repetition, but realization. 2 minutes here, 3 minutes there, the day salted with little altars of listening, and the atmosphere of your life changes. The Father that dwelleth in me, he doeth the works. As that ceases to be a line you quote and becomes a life you sense, fear finds no perch. Closer than breathing, nearer than hands and feet, the infinite invisible stands where you stand, moves where you move, and guards without guarding. In that contact, simple, secret, frequent, the one presence is known, and in knowing it, the myth of a second power quietly dissolves. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Mark it well. The promise is to dwelling, not to an occasional visit, not to a Sunday stopover, not to a crisis-driven knock at the door. Dwelling is climate, not episode. It is the soul's address, not a rented room. Because thou hast made the Lord thy habitation, there shall no evil befall thee. Habitation abiding turns protection from a hope into a felt inevitability, not because God suddenly arrives, but because consciousness awakens to what always is, one presence filling all space. Protection is a function of consciousness. It is the atmosphere of God awareness governing events, the unseen law of grace arranging what the eyes will later call safety. Not external fortresses, but interior fidelity. Not ritual words, but realized presence. Not incantations spun in fear, but the indwelling Christ, the Father within, he doeth the works. When you live in that secret place, circumstances are no longer tyrants. They become servants of grace. The same street, the same office, the same news feed, and yet another government presides, the government of peace. And of the increase of his government and peace there shall be no end. How does this appear in the marketplace of a day? Silently, secretly, unseen, unheard. I have watched trains hold 2 minutes without a conductor's plan, so that a needed meeting occurred without strain. I have seen a door that was always locked swing open at the precise moment a mother, remembering her inner altar, whispered, God is. I have watched missteps turn to right steps, as timing, traffic, and temperament wove themselves into an unlabored harmony. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Not by frantic calculation, by quiet habitation. When you abide, guidance takes the wheel without announcement. Provision arrives as an afterthought that has always been thinking. Protection is the climate you breathe, not a fence you raise. Do not mistake this for a technique. Techniques are for visitors. Dwelling is identity. It is the soul's settled consent. Here I live within. And the way is simple. So simple the busy mind stumbles over it. Keep the brief, faithful returnings until returnings become residence. Thou will keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee, A mind stayed, touched, and retouched 12, 15, 20 times a day ripens into a heart at rest, and a heart at rest changes the weather of a life. Then the words of the psalm cease to be poetry and become physics. He shall give his angels charge over thee. No plague shall come nigh thy dwelling. Not because plague is denied, but because presence is realized. And in the realized one, there is no second power for danger to inhabit. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Safety is one of the added things, but it is not added from outside. It flowers from within as the natural fragrance of abiding, not by might, not by mental power, but by my spirit, saith the Lord. Live there, stay there, in quietness and in confidence shall be your strength, indwelling your shield. You will find that you do not guard, you are guarded. You do not manage, you are carried. You do not arrange, you bear witness to an order already ordained. This is practical safety, the secret place as the daily address of the soul. Now, when the appearance of threat stands before you in bold letters or in a face you love, do not take hold of the problem. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. The practitioner does not join the theater of appearances. He declines the invitation to be a prop in that drama. He beholds God right there, not somewhere else, right where the parade of danger struts and demands attention. If thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. A single eye does not scan for enemies. A single eye beholds God only. And in the beholding, light reveals what darkness never was. Friends, there is no patient in God, no enemy in God. What stands before you is not a power, but a supposition seeking your consent, a suggestion asking you to sign for delivery. You will not sign, you will not argue, you will behold. I have sat in a hospital room where machines chatted like frightened birds, and I refused to take the case. I did not take the pulse. I took the presence. The Father within, he doeth the works. I turned the inner ear until the hush thickened with assurance, and then the atmosphere altered, the fear thinned, the edges softened, and the patient, who was never a patient in God, remembered how to rest. I have stood on a street corner where anger had a script and actors ready, and I would not learn the lines. I beheld God, not the story, not the heat, not the names, but God as the only life there, the only mind there, the only law there, and like a wind that no one sees but everyone feels. The scene broke up without heroics. This is not might. This is spirit, not by argument with error, but by beholding perfection that renders error nothing. Drop your self-treatment. Stop the wrestling match with shadows. Resist not evil. Reveal God. The Christ within performs all things for us. I live, yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. Let that be more than a phrase. Let it be your posture. Lay the problem down as if you set a heavy basket on the floor and open it only to find what misses. Holmes found there isn't any such patient. I'll tell you what's in that basket, God. When light is on, you do not push darkness out. You behold the room illumined, and darkness is discovered to be nothing but the absence of your seeing. So it is with threat. Behold God, and the claim loses its borrowed authority. How then shall you behold? Briefly, faithfully, on the instant. The screen shouts, the pain flares, the headline flashes pause. Turn within a breath. Father, thou art the only presence here. Keep still long enough for the inner assurance to take its throne. My peace I give unto you, and then let the scene be what it must while its scepter falls. Peter and John did not analyze the ankles at the gate. Such as I have give I thee. And the man walked. Elisha did not arm wrestle the army. He prayed the servant's eyes open, and behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire. So with you, you are not the fixer. You are the witness. One with God is a majority. Keep your eye single. Keep your ear inner. Keep your consent with God alone. We heal by beholding God, and in that beholding, what threatened to be something is revealed to be nothing at all, and God is all in all. Put up again thy sword, not merely the steel at Peter's side, but the subtler blade we polish in the mind, the sword of anxiety that rattles at a rumor, that sharpens itself on what-ifs, that stands guard before an empty throne. Hypervigilance is a form of worship. It is devotion paid to a second power that does not exist. Except the Lord keep the city, the watchman waketh but in vain. The anxious watchman may pace all night, but he is guarding a scarecrow and saluting an illusion, not by might, not by mental power, not by 1,000 rehearsed contingencies, but by my spirit, saith the Lord. We are not called to defensive magic, to counter spells of thought thrown like darts at the dark. We are summoned to rest, holy, vigilant rest. Hear the poet. Serene, I fold my hands and wait, not as indifference, not as laziness, but as yielded alertness, the soul poised to notice God, the mind surrendered to the inner government. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. The world mistakes this silence for passivity. Heaven knows it as readiness. The deeper the hush, the more swiftly grace can move, unencumbered by our engineering. The calmer the consent, the clearer the invisible hand that orders what we could never arrange. Replace the chattering what-ifs with the one recognition that dissolves their lineage. I and the Father are one, and that one is all. Whisper it as a doorway, and then rest beyond the whisper. When the mind rushes forward to calculate, turn it back with a single glance to the inner altar. Father, thou art the only presence here. Not to deny prudence, but to deny fear authority. Not to abandon wisdom, but to root wisdom in one mind instead of in alarms. If thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. A single eye does not scan for enemies. It beholds God only. And in that beholding, what-ifs retire like sentries dismissed at dawn. As striving yields, grace acts. The presence goes before you to make the crooked places straight. The Lord gathers up the rear. I will go before thee and make the crooked places straight. The Lord will go before you, and the God of Israel will be your reward. I have watched a house lighten when the Father stopped pacing, and for 1 minute made his contact with the infinite invisible. The call he feared arrived, changed in tone. The tension broke. The very air learned how to breathe. I have seen a traveler, stranded by a chain of delays, fold his hands inwardly, and without bargaining, watch doors open in a sequence no itinerary could have planned. Not by magic, by government. The Father within, he doeth the works. So lay down the sword of anxiety, and take up the yoke that is easy. Cast thy burden upon the Lord, and he shall sustain thee, not as a theory, but as the felt governance of grace that quietly, efficiently, lovingly arranges the day. You will not become careless, you will become cared for. You will not abandon responsibility. You will awaken to true responsibility, the ability to respond to spirit instead of to panic. Serene, you fold your hands not in retreat from life, but in surrender to life, while within The watch is kept by the one who neither slumbers nor sleeps. And in that exchange, anxious self-defense for effortless governance protection ceases to be your project and is discovered to be God's presence. There is a price to pay, not in coin, not in sacrifice of joy, but in constancy. Pray without ceasing is the apostles' counsel, and ceaseless prayer is not endless speech. It is brief, faithful returnings to the inner altar until the altar becomes the home of the heart. Set your 4 cornerstones each day: morning, midday, late afternoon, and bedtime. 2 or 3 minutes at each, no more, is required before the day rushes in, before the noon clatter, before the late fatigue takes hold, and before sleep. Sit as you are, close the outer door, open the inner ear, and make your contact with the infinite invisible. Father within, thou doest the works, then be still. This is your daily price. This is your steady yes. Between these 4, scatter your returnings like seed across the hours, 12, 15, 20 times a day. Do not make a ceremony of it. Do not wait for a quiet room. 1 breath in a doorway, 1 pause at a red light, 1 gentle turning while the feed jitters and beckons. Pause, yield, listen. No petition, no project, no commentary. Let the mind stand aside and the inner ear keep watch. These are not little nothings. These are the taps that keep the line open so that grace governs without your strain. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee. Stay touched and retouched until staying becomes the native state. To fulfill this price, you must make room. Reduce the streams that flood the mind. Cut down the news 90%. You will not become ignorant. You will become wise. Turn off the running commentary that passes for being informed. Stop problem prayer. Cease the mental arguments and the bargaining that only magnify shadows. Take no thought for your life. Not indifference, but holy refusal to feed a second power with your attention. The silence you save will be the sanctuary you live in. How shall you measure progress? Not by fireworks, not by outer theatrics, not by days without headlines. Measure by the deepening of peace and the swiftness of recollection. Yesterday it took you 10 minutes to remember God. Today it takes you 1 breath. Yesterday the fear set the pace. Today the pace is set by an inner hush that arrives on call because it is no longer a visitor but a resident. My peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Let that peace be your metric. If the recollection quickens, if the center holds, if gratitude springs without cause, know that the government is upon his shoulder and you are paying the price in the only coin heaven accepts: availability. This regimen is simple and sure. 4 anchors of 2 or 3 minutes, and between them 12 to 20 gentle returnings. Pause, yield, listen, not by might, not by mental power, but by my spirit, saith the Lord. Constancy in these brief, sincere turnings stabilizes conscious oneness, and with oneness, protection ceases to be a hope and becomes the natural climate of your day. Keep the ear inner, keep the heart yielded, keep the schedule, and grace will do the rest. Now we take this constancy into the laboratory of the street. The world will ring your bell a dozen ways before noon. Let every ring be a call to the altar within, not to brace yourself, but to return yourself, not to argue with the moment, but to acknowledge the one who fills it. Make your contact with the infinite invisible, and let the moment be transfigured by presence, not managed by mind. Be still and know that I am God. When the headlines shout and the feed jitters for your attention, close the app. Literally, close it. Turn the screen face down. One breath. Inner listening. Only one is here. Whisper, if you must, as a doorway, and then pass beyond words. Father within, thou doest the works. Refuse the compulsion to scroll the theater of fear. It is a poor catechism that trains the mind in oneness. Take no thought for your life. Not neglect, but holy refusal to feed a second power with attention. Keep this ear open. And notice how the climate shifts, the shoulders drop, the center gathers, the government returns to his shoulder. Then, if you must read, you will read under the shadow of the Almighty, not under the shadow of alarm. When sirens wail and the mind begins to project catastrophe, do not run ahead of grace with pictures and plots. Stop. One breath. Only one is here. Realize presence. Embracing all within that sound, the driver, the responders, the ones in need, the neighbors who listen, none outside the infinite. Underneath are the everlasting arms. He shall give his angels charge over thee. Do not outline. Do not fix. Acknowledge. Father, thou art the life, the mind, the law of all being there. Thy peace governs, not by might, not by mental power, but by my spirit. Let the siren become your bell to the secret place. In that inner hush, dominion replaces fear's speculation. When you are alone in the dark hallway, street, hotel room, do not animate shadows with imagination. Stop at the threshold. Feel the nearness, nearer than hands and feet, closer than breathing. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Wait for the felt warmth, the weightless weight of assurance. My peace I give unto you, and then take the next step. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Move by that lamp, not by the lamp of fear. When conflict arises and the tongue aches to answer, withhold reaction. Set a watch, O Lord, before my mouth. Keep the door of my lips. Be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. Behold the Christ, where the accuser seems to stand. God is the only life there, the only mind there, the only law there. Keep silence until inner clearance is given. Then speak from the witness, not the worrier. Judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. Words born of the hush carry a government that calms where arguments inflame. So let the street, the feed, and the night become your trigger labs. Each ring, each flash, each flare, bell, 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 calling you home to the secret place. Pause, yield, listen. Only one is here. One with God is a majority. And in that instant of holy return, you will find that dominion is not seized, it is revealed. Protection is not achieved, it is recognized. And grace silently, efficiently performs all things for you. The next discovery is not about adding one more practice. It is about changing the one who practices. Identity is the hinge. The worrier says I and means a biography, a nervous system, a bundle of forecasts. The witness says I and means the indwelling Christ. Hear the apostle. I live, yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. Take the name from the old costume and hand it back to its rightful wearer. Stop signing your letters in fear's hand. Reassign the I. Let the anxious persona return to dust. Let the I that is life announce itself. Ye are dead, and your life is hid with Christ in God. This is not poetry. It is the most practical safety you will ever know. Authority flows from identity. One with God is a majority, not because one has mastered techniques of bravery, not because one can recite promises on cue, but because the I that lives is the presence itself, the only presence, not rehearsed courage, but realized sonship. As many as are led by the Spirit of God, they are the sons of God. You will sense the shift when you no longer pep talk yourself into movement. You stand, you listen, you consent, and action issues from an authority that does not shout. The Father within doeth the works. Then even your voice, when it speaks, carries a timbre, not your own. It is quieter, and it governs. As identity shifts, action becomes clean. We move from impulse to inspired step. Not reaction born of threat, but response born of presence. Be still and know that I am God. And out of that stillness comes a simple instruction. Turn here, wait there, say nothing now. Speak one sentence and the path unfolds without residue. The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord. Clean action leaves no aftertaste of anxiety. It does not need applause. It does not defend itself. It bears the seal of grace. Unlabored, exact, sufficient. Not by might, not by mental power, but by my spirit. And watch what happens to the world as your name returns to Christ. Enemies fade into neighbors when you behold the same life animating each face. If thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. The single eye does not scan for adversaries. It recognizes its own life looking back. The label opponent drops like an old cloak, and in its place stands a brother, a sister, a fellow altar of the one. Love your enemies ceases to be a heroic demand and becomes the geometry of oneness. You will find the tongue slow to accuse, the hand quick to bless, the heart free of the theater of sides, because Christ cannot be against Christ. Emmanuel, Tao, Buddha, Shankara, Jesus the Christ, many names, one life, many garments, one wearer. Here is the quiet miracle. Protection flowers not by your watching, but by your witnessing. The warrior keeps vigil at an empty gate. The witness abides, and the city is kept by the Lord. The old I fretted, calculated, bristled. The new I beholds, consents, and lives under a government that cannot fail. Put on the new man, and let the day be arranged by the one who is nearer than hands and feet. Reassign the name. Live from the witness. One with God is a majority, and in that majority, there is no second power for danger to inhabit. Beloved, from the witness in you, there issues a call to the witness in me, and together we answer by gathering not to trade alarms, not to compare injuries, not to rehearse the liturgy of fear, but to share silence of one place and of one mind. Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. When the day of Pentecost was fully come, they were all with one accord in one place. That is our pattern. Not a room filled with words, but a room filled with God. We do not convene to get, we convene to be. We do not pool our anxieties, we pool our hush. Where two or three are gathered together in my name, there am I in the midst of them. Let us be gathered in that name, not as a syllable, but as realized presence. And in that room of silence, we welcome the name by many names, without rivalry and without debate. Emmanuel, God with us, the Christ, the Anointed, Life, Tao, the Way, Buddha, the Awakened Mind. Shankara's one self beyond appearance. One life, many garments, one music, many instruments. We are not assembling for an ecumenical argument. We are assembling for worship in spirit and in truth, where thought bows and the inner ear keeps watch for the still small voice. Not doctrine, but awareness. Not labels, but life. One mind recognized as the mind of all in the room, and because of that, ease. We make an agreement at the door, holy and simple. Come without your problems. Bring no baskets for inspection. Seek only a touch of presence. Out of that touch, guidance for all emerges without committee, without outline, without pressure. The peace of God, which passeth all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds. I have watched a circle keep silence until the air itself grew weightless, and then a neighbor's confusion untangled without counsel, a child's fever eased without announcement, a rift softened before any apology was spoken. And when they had prayed, the place was shaken, and they were all filled with the Holy Ghost. Not shaken into noise, but into assurance. Not filled with fervor, but with governance. The Christ performs all things for us. Such an assembly becomes a lamp set upon a hill that cannot be hid. Without slogan and without spectacle, a canopy of peace spreads like fragrance across a neighborhood, silently, secretly, unseen, unheard, tempering tempers, lengthening patience, easing the traffic of minds. Peace be to this house, said the Master. And that peace, once realized, does not stop at the doorframe. It slips under thresholds. It rides the breeze down the block. It blesses dogs and mailmen and the shopkeeper's tired back. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. They shall prosper that love thee. You are praying not by petition, but by presence, not by might, not by mental power, but by my spirit, saith the Lord. Angels are given charge not as fantasy, but as the operation of grace made welcome by a people of one accord. Therefore, let us keep such hours. Arrive 5 minutes early and drop your story at the threshold. Sit in stillness 2 or 3 minutes at a time, returning and returning again until the hush takes the throne. If any word is offered, let it be a single sentence of recognition. Father, thou art the only presence here, and then yield again to silence. Depart without chatter, as those who carry a living ember under their cloak, that the street may be warmed. One with God is a majority. 2 or 3 gathered in that one become a living canopy of peace. Beloved, now we go out each with an ember under the cloak. Guard it. This is the pearl of great price. Do not bring it to market. Mary kept all these things and pondered them in her heart. The Master, after a wonder, would say, See thou tell no man, not to hide the light, but to protect the oil that makes the lamp burn. Cast not your pearls before swine, not as a judgment upon others, but as wisdom for the soul. Do not cast the holy into the arena of opinion. Let the fragrance work. Let the fruit appear in its own season without your trumpet. Take heed that ye do not your alms before men, to be seen of them. Enter into thy closet, and thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly. Keep it in the heart's treasury. Refuse to chase signs. An evil and adulterous generation seeketh after a sign, and the seeking breeds more seeking. The kingdom cometh not with observation, neither shall they say, Lo here, or lo there. For, behold, the kingdom of God is within you. Seek presence only. The fruit will take care of itself. Not lights, not voices, not phenomena, but the still, sure governance that needs no display. If you find your attention leaning toward results, Turn it back with a single sentence to the altar within. Father, thou art the only presence here. Rest there until the itch for proof dissolves in peace. Continue the little obediences. Keep the 4 anchors: morning, noon, late afternoon, and night, 2 or 3 minutes. Between them, your 12 to 20 returnings. Pause, yield, listen. Keep the ear inner. Maintain the climate. As inner assurance grows, let newspapers shrink to a whisper. Let radios fall silent. Let the noisy appetite be shorn. You will not become small. You will become spacious. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. And remember, fast without announcement. Anoint your head and wash your face. Let no one know your schedule but the Father who seeth in secret, not by might, not by mental power, but by my Spirit, saith the Lord. Bless the world in silence and move on. Do not argue with streets or headlines or faces. Let your prayer be as light slipped under a door. Father, glorify thyself here. Then go your way in quiet confidence. If peace is refused, let your peace return to you. You are not diminished. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give unto you. Salute each threshold inwardly. Peace be to this house, and keep walking. The Christ performs all things for us. Guard the pearl. Keep constancy without show. Secrecy without fear. Gratitude without noise. Dwell, and let the dwelling be its own testament. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. One with God is a majority, and in that one there is no second power for danger to inhabit. The Lord bless thee and keep thee. The Lord make his face shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. The Lord lift up his countenance upon thee and give thee peace. Go in hush, remain in God, and let God remain in you.